The red and blue lights rippled across the water's surface as I tightened the last cleat hitch on my boat. The night air was calm, but the sound of boots echoed steadily down the dock. 2 police officers approached, their silhouettes cutting sharply against the glow from the patrol car. The taller one, Officer Martinez, cleared his throat before speaking in that steady official tone only seasoned cops have. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "We received a call about trespassing and unauthorized docking here at the marina. I didn't even have to guess who'd made the call." My eyebrow lifted slightly as I caught a glimpse of platinum blonde hair and crossed arms at the shoreline. There she was, Patricia Hendricks, or as everyone around Sunset Shores called her, Karen. She stood there with that smug look of victory, chin tilted, as if she'd finally managed to bring me down after weeks of trying. But before I tell you what happened that night, I need to rewind to explain exactly how I ended up with police officers confronting me over a boat I legally owned. 3 months earlier, I bought a waterfront property in the Sunset Shores subdivision. The place was a dream. Open water views, classic craftsman-style design, and quiet sunsets that looked like they were painted for postcards. But the real treasure wasn't the house. It was the bonus that came with it. A 51% ownership stake in the Sunset Marina, which sat right beside the property. The marina wasn't just a dock. It was history. Built over 40 years ago by an old-timer named Frank Morrison, it had survived hurricanes, development booms, and more HOA meetings than any sane man could handle. Frank was sharp. He'd kept majority control of the marina even as the neighborhood sprang up around it. When he passed away, his estate attorney reached out to me with an offer that, frankly, I couldn't refuse. Now, enter Patricia Hendricks, the self-appointed queen of Sunset Shores. For 7 long years, she'd ruled the HOA like a tiny empire, enforcing every petty regulation with an iron fist wrapped in pastel stationery. She decided who got to park where, what color your shutters could be, and, apparently, who deserved access to the marina. Patricia's power trips were legendary. She once measured her neighbor's grass with a ruler to issue a citation, and she'd written someone up because their wind chimes were too melodic. Her control issues were almost an art form. My first run-in with her came the very week I moved in. I was still surrounded by boxes when she appeared at my doorstep with a plastic-wrapped welcome basket and a 3-inch binder under her arm. Her smile was tight and sugary. "Welcome to Sunset Shores," she said, voice oozing politeness. "I took the liberty of highlighting the most important HOA rules for you. Pay special attention to sections 4 through 17. Those cover our watercraft regulations." I thanked her, took the binder, and set it aside. I figured I'd get around to reading it after unpacking. That, apparently, was my first mistake. See, Patricia didn't like being ignored. When I skipped the emergency HOA meeting, she called to discuss new resident integration. She took it as a personal insult. But things really blew up the first time I brought my boat down to the marina. It wasn't some flashy yacht, just a modest 24-foot cabin cruiser. She was clean, sturdy, and reliable, my pride and joy. As I backed the trailer down the ramp, Patricia materialized out of thin air, clipboard in hand, like some sort of bureaucratic phantom. "Excuse me," she barked. "You can't launch that here without HOA approval." I calmly explained that I lived at 47 Waterfront Drive and that my property included marina rights. Her face twitched, cycling through shades of pink and purple. "That doesn't matter," she snapped. "All watercraft must be approved by the HOA board before entering our marina." That's when I dropped the first bombshell. With the smallest possible smile, I said, "Actually, Patricia, I don't just have marina rights. I own 51% of the marina itself. I bought it along with the Morrison property." For a moment, she froze. The look on her face was priceless, part disbelief, part fury. But I should have known that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Patricia went on the offensive. She launched a full-scale campaign that would have made a politician proud. Every day, a new email blasted out to the HOA mailing list with sensational subject lines like, "Unauthorized vessel threatens community standards," and "Property values at risk from negligent boat owner." She organized what she called informal gatherings near the dock, where curious neighbors happened to stroll by while I worked on my boat. They'd shake their heads and whisper about declining neighborhood standards. Then came the official complaints to the HOA board, the City Marina Commission, and even the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Every time I responded calmly, forwarding copies of my ownership documents and the marina deed. But Patricia, she didn't back down. Instead, she doubled down. She began taking photos of my boat from every possible angle, claiming it violated aesthetic guidelines. She measured the dock distance with a tape measure, insisting I was 3 inches over the allowed line. She even hired what she called an independent marine consultant, who turned out to be her nephew with a fishing license and an attitude. The tension came to a head during the next monthly HOA meeting. Patricia stood at the podium like a prosecutor addressing a jury, gesturing wildly at a PowerPoint titled, "The Boat Problem, a Clear and Present Danger to Our Community." Slide after slide showed my boat from unflattering angles, complete with red arrows and dramatic captions. When she finally wrapped up her 45-minute presentation, I stood, walked calmly to the front, and connected my phone to the projector. "I'd like to share something with everyone," I said evenly. The screen switched to show the original marina deed and incorporation papers. "As you can see," I explained, "the marina is a separate legal entity from the HOA. The majority owner, me, has full authority over slip assignments, approvals, and operations. The HOA has no jurisdiction here." The room fell into a stunned hush. Then came the whispers. Some of the board members looked uncomfortable, realizing they'd been siding with Patricia against a legal owner. Patricia's face went through every color of a stoplight, before settling on bright crimson. "This is impossible," she shrieked. "I've managed this marina for 7 years. You can't just walk in and claim ownership." I shrugged slightly. "I didn't claim anything, Patricia. I bought it. Deeds is on file with the county. Would you like to see the tax records?" That was the moment she snapped. 2 days later, I returned from a peaceful morning cruise to find police lights flashing at the dock. Patricia had actually called, reporting that I was trespassing on HOA property and illegally mooring a vessel, and that's how I found myself standing there, tightening a cleat hitch while 2 officers approached, ready to question me about my own marina. Officer Martinez listened carefully as I explained everything, scrolling through the documents on my phone. He leaned closer, studying the screen, while his partner, Officer Chen, tried not to laugh outright. It was clear they both knew what was happening here. Patricia stood a few feet away, arms crossed tight, foot tapping in irritation like she was trying to drill through the dock. After a moment, Officer Martinez turned to her and said, his voice calm but firm, "Ma'am, this gentleman owns the marina. You can't trespass on property you legally own." Patricia's mouth fell open before she quickly recovered, voice climbing in pitch as she protested. But the HOA has rules. We have standards. This violates everything we stand for." Officer Chen took a slow step forward, his expression now serious. "Ma'am, calling 911 for a false emergency is a misdemeanor. You've wasted city resources for what looks like a personal disagreement. That shut her up." Over the next few days, the neighborhood buzzed like a kicked hornet's nest. Everyone heard about Patricia's failed police stunt, and suddenly, people who'd never dared speak against her started talking. Slip renters from the marina approached me privately, one after another, sharing their own horror stories about her power trips. Tom Bradley from Unit 12 told me she once tried to ban his kayak because it was too yellow. Sarah Chan from Unit 33 said Patricia demanded she write a 1-page essay explaining why she deserved a boat slip. That was when I decided enough was enough. I called an emergency meeting for all slip holders and any interested residents. When the day came, the community center was overflowing. You could feel the tension in the air, but also curiosity. I stood before them and laid out my plans for the marina. Clear and confident. First, I said, we're upgrading the infrastructure. New cleats, better lighting, proper safety equipment. No more neglected docks or faulty ropes, the crowd murmured approvingly. Second, I continued, slip assignments will be fair and transparent. No favoritism. No book club politics. This time they clapped. And third, I said with growing conviction, We're done with the nonsense. No aesthetic committees. No boat beauty contests. If your vessel is seaworthy and you respect your neighbors, you're welcome here. That's when I saw her, Patricia, sitting in the back row, her expression a storm of disbelief and fury. When I opened the floor for questions, she sprang to her feet, voice trembling with rage. "This is a coup! You're destroying everything that makes Sunset Shores special." Before I could answer, an older man named George, a longtime resident, slowly stood. His voice was calm but carried the weight of years. "Patricia," he said, "the only thing being destroyed here is your stranglehold on this community." "We're tired of living in fear of your violation notices." Applause broke out instantly. Then came stories, one after another. People brought up the Great Garden Gnome ban of 2019, the mailbox color war of 2020, and the infamous bird feeder prohibition that had driven 3 families to move away. By the time the room quieted, I stepped back to the podium and said evenly, "Here's what's going to happen. The marina will operate independently from HOA control, and starting today there's a strict anti-harassment policy. Anyone caught intimidating, photographing, or falsely reporting other marina users will lose access, permanently." Patricia's lawyer, a nervous man named Jeffrey Williams, leaned in and whispered frantically to her. She ignored him completely. "You can't do this," she shouted, nearly shaking. "I'll sue. I'll call the state HOA board. I'll bring in the news." But before she could continue, HOA Vice President Michael Torres stood and raised his hand. His tone was measured but resolute. "I move," he said, "to hold a vote of no confidence in our current HOA president, based on her misuse of authority and actions that have exposed this community to legal liability." You could have heard a pin drop. Then came the votes, one after another. 17 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstention, Patricia's sister. When the final count was read, Patricia stood frozen, her lips trembling. Michael Torres cleared his throat and added, "Furthermore, I move that we formally separate HOA governance from marina operations, recognizing Mr. Johnson's legal ownership and authority." The second motion passed unanimously. Patricia's jaw clenched. She grabbed her designer purse and stormed toward the exit. But just before disappearing through the doorway, she turned and hissed, "This isn't over. You'll regret this." But it was over. The next morning, I posted the new marina rules, simple, fair, and focused on safety, not vanity. I also installed a new sign at the entrance, Sunset Marina, privately owned and operated. Slip rentals available to respectful community members. 2 weeks later, I got a new application in the mail. The name on it? Patricia Hendris. She'd bought a small sailboat, clearly hoping to claw her way back into the marina's orbit. I read her application carefully, noting her record, false police reports, harassment complaints, and a pending misdemeanor for misuse of emergency services. I stamped the paper with one word, denied, and I wrote a note beneath it. Due to a documented history of harassment and false reporting against Marina's property, this application cannot be approved. Decision is final. The day she received it, she showed up at the Marina office, face twisted in outrage. Her scream echoed across the water. "You can't do this to me! I built this community! I am Sunset Shores." I looked up from my paperwork, calm as ever. "Patricia," I said, "you're welcome to dock at the public marina 6 miles north. I hear they've got an excellent HOA compliance program. It was the last real conversation we ever had. Her legal battles drained her finances. The court fees from her failed challenges and the fine from her false 911 call forced her to sell her house. She eventually moved to a landlocked community in Arizona. At her final HOA meeting before leaving, she sat silent as the new board systematically overturned her old, petty rules. Meanwhile, I spent that evening at the marina, installing one final touch, a small, discreet sign at my personal slip that read, "Private slip, owner-operated." Under reasonable management, the marina flourished. Families came back. Kids laughed and fished off the docks. The sunsets returned to being peaceful again. No violation notices, no tension, no drama. In the end, Patricia's 911 call, the one meant to humiliate me, had done the opposite. It exposed her corruption to the whole community. The misdemeanor charge stuck. $3,000 in fines, 40 hours of community service, and permanent removal from the HOA board. The local paper even ran a headline, HOA President's Overreach Leads to Downfall. Her reputation as a real estate agent was ruined. And when she saw the final judgment, $3,000 for one phone call, her voice cracked into a whisper. $3,000 for one phone call. Her lawyer simply nodded. You're lucky it wasn't worse.